Hi there, welcome back. My name is John Dwayne, and this is the fourth in a series of short videos to help homeowners develop and maintain a healthy, attractive lawn while at the same time doing no damage to the local marine ecosystem. This is particularly applicable to our neighborhood, which is Hinckley's Pond and the surrounding watershed in Harwich, Massachusetts. If you haven't already watched the first three videos, I encourage you to do so, especially videos 2 and 3, which cover plant biology and getting a professional soil analysis. Some of what I'll talk about today builds on that information. Today we're talking about picking the right fertilizer for your yard, so let's get started. Here's the lineup for today's video. I will talk briefly about state and local regulations that you should be aware of. Then, how do I read the professional soil analysis? In the next video, I'll cover the remaining fertilizer questions. What should I do with this soil analysis and what are my options? State and local authorities have taken a great interest in how farmers, landscapers, and homeowners use fertilizer. In our state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they have at least one law governing how we use fertilizer on our lawns. The law's enabling regulations use the UMass Amherst Extension guidelines as a basis. Here's the Massachusetts government website that will lead you to all sorts of information about this topic. It will lead you to this fact sheet, which gives you everything you need to know about the regulations. Their biggest concern is the use of phosphorus. You may have noticed that most fertilizer you see at your local retailer, at least here in Massachusetts, contains no phosphorus. That's because the Commonwealth has banned its use, except in rare cases, such as establishing a new lawn. You should also be aware that most towns have a department that takes a big interest in the chemicals homeowners apply to their lawns. They all seem to have slightly different rules, some written, some not written. So you should check with your local conservation department, or whatever it's called in your town, to see what they require. In towns near Hinckley's Pond, one of the big rules concerns what you can do if your property is right on the water. If any part of your lawn is within 100 feet of water's edge, you should check with the town to see if they allow any fertilizer, herbicides, or insecticides. They might not. A lot of this is common sense, but some of it's arbitrary, such as why 100 feet and not 75 feet? And what if I have a 10-foot buffer of bushes at the water's edge, but then grass after that leading all the way up to the house? Is it still 100 feet? So my advice is check with the town. Keep in mind, this is what we're trying to avoid. A pond with a huge algae bloom with a very smelly, toxic present and a very uncertain future. Picking the right fertilizer and applying it correctly will go a long way toward avoiding this outcome and extending the life of your pond, lake, or stream. The first page of your professional soil analysis, if you had it done at UMass Amherst, is full of information about the macronutrients and micronutrient levels in your soil. All that's very interesting because, after all, it's your yard. But the only information you can use to take action is on page 2, and that's what I'm showing here, the recommendations for soil amendments. Notice the macronutrient names running across the top of the table: limestone, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. There's a recommendation for each one. This is the report for my yard, so I know it pretty well. First, there's limestone, or lime. This macronutrient addresses the acidity or alkalinity of the soil. Chemists measure this condition using the pH scale. Remember that from high school? It runs from 1 to 14. A pH of 7 right in the middle is usually considered neutral, and that's what grass likes. However, it's nearly always the case here in New England that our soil is going to be acidic. There are several reasons for this. The biggest one is that decomposing organic matter, leaves, twigs, grass clippings, are naturally acidic. And the chemical process of decomposition is constantly releasing acids into the soil. So your soil analysis recommendation here in New England will almost always call for adding lime, which will raise the pH from a low number to something closer to 7. The experts at UMass caution that we should never add more than 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet at one time. Next is nitrogen. The recommendation is for 2 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet, so let's call it 3 pounds. Then comes phosphorus. The recommendation is for half a pound per 1,000 square feet. That isn't very much, so let's call it 0. Plus, this is the nutrient that's banned in Massachusetts for existing lawns, so no phosphorus. And last is potassium, so 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Easy enough. Or is it? All these amounts are for 1,000 square feet. My front yard, which this is for, is a little over 2,000 square feet. So I need to double these amounts. So 100 pounds of lime, 6 pounds of nitrogen, still no phosphorus, and 6 pounds of potassium. So there are a couple of key things here. The first is that I know my square footage. If you don't know how many square feet your yard is, well, you're going to have to get out there and measure it. Fortunately, you only have to do it once. Write it down, put it someplace where you won't lose it. The other key thing is that this recommendation is the aggregate amount for the entire season. You need to split it up as recommended. So for lime, it's 2 applications per season. For the other nutrients, it's like 3 or 4, like at least 3. I recommend 4. If you apply it all at once, you're over fertilizing. You might burn the grass, and worse, the excess fertilizer will probably just run right through your soil, leach into the groundwater, and this is exactly what we're trying to avoid. So that's it for today. The takeaway here is to understand your state and local regulations before you go out and buy fertilizer, and to understand your soil analysis recommendations. You may have to do some reading here and maybe place a phone call or two to the town, but it's worth it if we can keep our local pond looking as beautiful in years to come as it is today. I love this shot of the pond at dawn in the early spring. Next time, we'll finish up our discussion of fertilizer and get into the practical side of it. What should I be thinking about when I go to the fertilizer store? So more on that next time. Thank you.